In our previous lecture, we talked about the most important decision taken by the companies, that is the investment decision. Now let's move on and discuss about one more significant decision taken by the top managers in the company, which is the dividend decision. Now, what is the dividend? Dividend is the share of company's profits given to the shareholders. So the decision on how much of profits to be given to the shareholders as dividend and how much to be retained with the company is called the dividend decision. For example, if a company makes $100,000 as profits and decides to pay out 10% dividend, then it means that it is paying out 1 lakh into 10%, that is 100,000 into 10%, 10,000 as dividend. And it also means that it is retaining 90,000 as profits. So what do you mean by retained profits? The retained profits or the retained earnings are the profits which are left over after paying taxes and dividends. So it is as simple as that. Now let's move on and discuss more about dividends in detail. Imagine you own a company. If you take the debentures, you know that you got to pay interest irrespective of the profit or loss you're making. But this is not the case with dividends. The decision whether to pay out dividends or not on any particular year is at the company's discretion. Shareholders are beyond doubt going to expect dividends from you. But your decision as to when to pay and how much to pay will be controlled by various factors happening in your company. So here are some of the factors which are usually taken cognizance of by any company manager before deciding to pay dividends to the shareholders. But before that, let me ask you a question. Which of these factors would you consider as a finance manager before taking the dividend decision? Would you look at your profits to ensure you have them adequately? Or would you look at your cash flows and make sure you have good cash flows? Or would you look at your shareholders' preference, and that would mean whether your shareholders prefer at least some amount to be paid as dividend, because some may expect a nominal amount of income to be flowing in consistently. Which of these three options would you consider? Any one of these? All of these? Or none of these? Take some time to think and choose the answer. Now let's look at the answer. If your answer is profits, that is the right answer. Yes, you would consider profits to ensure you have sufficient amount of profits from which a part of it can be paid out as dividend. Any good manager would do that. So you must consider and gauge the profits before paying out dividends. Next, if you had chosen cash flows, then that is also right, because you need to have the real cash in hand or in your bank account so that it can be used up for paying dividends. I know you're thinking in your mind, why cash is unavoidable? Why wouldn't profits suffice? Well, we've already discussed about cash flows in our earlier video, where we said that if you take only the profits, then you're including the cash which is locked up in debtors. This does not really represent the cash as such. You may receive the real cash only if the debtors make the payment. Until then, you will have no cash in your hands or in your bank account. It's locked up in your debtors, as I said earlier. So that's why you must consider the real cash in hand before deciding on paying out dividends. If you had chosen the third option, shareholders' preference, then that is also the right answer. As we discussed, some shareholders might expect a consistent income in the way of dividends. So you gotta consider that too. Now, to sum up, All the three factors are very essential and imperative, and they are to be taken into account while you are discussing about the payment of dividend to your shareholders. In addition to these three factors, there are 9 other factors to be considered before paying out dividend. These are not as important as the first 3, but are usually considered by the management. We will discuss about all these 9 factors in the coming video lectures.